time. Good afternoon. Welcome, Birmingham. Glad to have y'all with us at the MS Views and News, Land of MS Effective Communication Series. We're going to have tonight's speakers will be Dr. LeGank and Miss Tracy Fleming Tracy. And I know a lot of y'all are used to hearing them, and we're always glad to have them as a part of us and enjoy them speaking with us. For those that don't know me, my name is Kenneth Davis. I am the Alabama coordinator for the MS News and Views events. It's actually Views and News. A lot of times my dyslexia takes over, and I've mispronounced that. But I wanted to share with y'all some of our upcoming events that you can also find on the right-hand side of our webpage. May 19th, we'll be in Montgomery for this same series, as well as August the 18th in Huntsville. We'll be back here on August the 20th for the symposium. And if you've ever been to one of our symposiums, it's something to be a part of. And we look forward to having all of y'all back then. Don't forget, register, and reconfirm. No, these are a little bit away, but September the 15th, we'll be in Dothan. And on September the 17th, we're going to be in Mobile. So if you've got friends, relatives, or if you're traveling and in that area and want to join us, look at the website, look at the upcoming events, and register with us. One other thing I'd like to point out is you should have received at the front registration table, it was our patient information tool. And if on the website, if you go up to the Info tab, look under Patient Info 2, that is the document you can use when you go to visit your doctor to mark down and write and check and make notes of the illnesses or relapsing conditions you're having or anything that's dealing with MS, and you'll have it in hand between visits. That way when you go back to your doctor, you'll have the actual information in hand and you won't have to rely on that cognitive issue that a lot of you deal with. All right, I've covered the upcoming events, and now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Stuart Schlossman, President of MS Views and News.
He took away what I was supposed to talk to you all about. So I just want to say thank you again for coming tonight. And for those that don't know, yes, my name is Stuart Schlossman. I too have multiple sclerosis, and this thing is annoying, isn't it? So I too have MS, and that's where all this began several years ago when we first started doing programs for people with MS. And since February of 2010, when we did our very first program, we've now held over 200 programs in 13 states. So this is what we're doing for all of you all with MS and those affected by MS. And those affected by MS are also your caregivers. So we really appreciate when you can get your caregivers to come on out here. And it doesn't have to be a spouse or a significant other. It could also be your children. I mean, we really don't mind if your children would like to know about what's going on with you all. So, and in addition to that, if you have any other healthcare providers that you think that should come to a program like this, it could be a dentist, all right? It doesn't have to be a neurologist. It doesn't have to be a nurse practitioner. But if you think that somebody who talks to you all the time needs to know more about MS, then we welcome those people to come to our programs as well. All right, so Ken already told you about all the other stuff, like the cell phones and the talking and all these different things, right? All right, so we'll get on to others. He told you about the programs in Alabama. He didn't tell you, though, that I'm running around from state to state doing all these programs. And in between the one that we're doing in Montgomery and the ones that we're doing in Huntsville and in Birmingham again, I have to be in Columbus, Ohio, where we're going to be doing 4 programs between June and July. I mean, people just want our programs to get out there, and so that's what we do, and that's also why we video record our programs. We had our first fundraiser gala last month in South Florida, and you might recognize one of the people on there. It's the gentleman all the way to the left. His name is Don McNeil. Does anybody know Don McNeil? Raise your hand for anybody that knows Don McNeil. Well, Don McNeil is a patient advocate speaker for MS Views and News, because Don McNeil also has multiple sclerosis. And Don McNeil used to be Alabama Crimson Tide. He was a Hall of Famer. Went on to play for the Miami Dolphins, where he played in a couple of Super Bowls, and it wasn't until he finished playing football that he was falling down a lot while jogging every day, and they didn't know why, and then he was eventually diagnosed with MS. Anyway, Don was one of our honorees at our program, and this was our very, very first fundraiser, and fortunately, Don brought some nice names with him. Dwight Stevenson. You remember that name? All right, so Dwight Stevenson was also there, and Dwight and his family were there, and we also had Mark Duper and Nat Moore and others that people know. Other Hall of Famers were all at this event. It was a great thing. And then our doctor in the middle, neurologist, he also was at that event, obviously. We were honoring Brian Steingo and Don McNeil. Don McNeil, the reason why I brought this up, he's going to be speaking again for us in Alabama on August 20th. He's going to be one of the speakers here in the Birmingham program. And then he'll be speaking for us again in Mobile. So we hope that you all will register and come on down to those programs. All right. I don't know if, did you get to thank who gave us the funding for tonight's program? So let's all thank Teva Neuroscience for making it possible to do tonight's program. Because without the dollars that we get from various places, whether they be pharmaceuticals or philanthropists or support from different healthcare systems, we appreciate it all, and we also have to thank all of you for attending our programs. So I don't want to go on and on and on about many different things, which I can easily speak to you for 2 hours about, but I know you're not really here to hear me. So let's first invite up Tracy Fleming. Tracy. I think this mic is in a great spot for you, too.
Okay.
All right?
I have to
Thanks
move
for coming.
around too, so
You can.
this will be interesting.
You can bring the mic with you.
Okay, sounds good. So I am Tracy Tracy. I'm going to leave out the Fleming. I did marry John Tracy 17 years ago and decided to change my name, and it's been great fun ever since. But I'm an occupational therapist. Thank you. And I work here in town in Homewood at Neuro Recovery. And I thank MS Views and News for asking me to speak. I always love to come to these events just because actually I know pretty much, well, most of you in the audience, but also it gets me out of taking the kids to their after-school activities and cooking dinner. So I thank you guys for coming to hear me speak tonight. I'm here to talk about the land of MS, fostering effective communication with your healthcare team and beyond. I think this is a very important topic. I'd like to start with my next slide, which is actually building your team. So I think this is a really important concept. I don't know how many of you guys have, if you feel like you have a team, and what I mean by this is a multidisciplinary, a comprehensive team from a healthcare standpoint. I think your team could consist of a neurologist, primary care physicians, perhaps a urologist, an ophthalmologist, but also occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists, counselors, social workers, also including nonprofits. We're so fortunate to have a lot of nonprofits associated with multiple sclerosis, definitely taking advantage of them, taking advantage of some of the support systems that some of our pharmaceutical companies have as well. I think that there's a pretty robust network that we can get involved with if we choose with the multiple sclerosis diagnosis. Also, it's very important for us to think about our supportive team members at home, be that our family members, our spouses, our children, or even perhaps a good network of friends. There's also really great social networks out there. I know we have some good Facebook pages here in town. I'm sure there's some Twitter pages out there and things like that that I'm not too privy to, but I think there's some great self-help groups that you can get involved with as well. It's just taking that step and really building your team around a good support system and a good positive environment to help you out. Okay. So as I spoke to before, therapists, counselors, different kind of healthcare providers can help you as well. It's important, I think, to be involved, at least to get an initial opinion or diagnosis from someone who is at a certified center. You can find those on the consortium website. They also have a list of certified therapists that you might be able to see. These people actually are dedicated. They have proven some time in MS research. They have passed a certification exam. They have put in the hours, and they do treat a specific number, a specific percentage of people with multiple sclerosis. So it somewhat makes them an expert in this area. If you have someone close by, I think it's worth a day drive just to go see some of these people that are listed here on the msfocus.org website. I think it's important to start to build your team at diagnosis. Lots of people, when they're first diagnosed, might just have, say, like an optic neuritis event. Something happens with their eye that they get blurred vision, and that's pretty much all they have. So at that time, they might not really realize that they might need to see a physical therapist or an occupational therapist or a speech therapist. But I would highly encourage you to seek out these resources, because what you can obtain when you're first diagnosed is some baseline metrics. You can see perhaps if that optic neuritis event did affect your vision, or perhaps even just your balance without you knowing. The physical therapist can take some baseline metrics, such as 6-minute walking speed, to see how fast you're walking, how you fatigue over time. We can look at strength. We can look at your fatigue scale. These are all good things to know when you're diagnosed, so that if you have questions about them, if you do have a relapse, then you know where you started out at, and we have an idea of what your baseline is. So if you're seeing someone that is certified in MS, then what you really want them to be doing for you is you want them to be looking at your EDSS score, which is your expanded disability scale score, a vision exam, a multiple sclerosis functional composite evaluation, a strength test, 6-minute walk test, a bladder scan, because one thing that we do know is that a bladder infection is linked to relapses. So we want to make sure your bladder is working appropriately, and if not, we want to make sure we take the correct action to help you with that, to avoid that relapse. You want to look at BICAMS, which is a cognitive measure, because what we learned is sometimes processing speed can be a challenge when you're first diagnosed, or maybe some memory issues, and there are ways that we can teach you to help with that, so that you can be successful at your job, or multitasking, or whatever it is you need to do to get through your day. Okay. Ooh, this is kind of tiny. Okay, so therapy services. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that a therapist could do for you as part of your team member. One thing is vestibular rehabilitation. So lots of people will come to me and, they know their hand's numb, or they know they have a weak leg, but they might not think that we can do anything about being dizzy. Well, I'm here to tell you we definitely can. When you walk around all day and you're afraid to turn your head because you're dizzy, your line of vision becomes really small, increasingly small. So what happens is when we do have to turn our head when someone's calling our name, or when we're driving and cars are going by, or we're at Walmart, we call it the Walmart syndrome. When people are talking to you and you're having to scan the aisles, then what we can do is we can teach you how to cope in that environment. We can teach you how to turn your head so you don't get that dizzy. It's called habituation. We can make you turn your head in a safe location during therapy, and your body starts to tell itself, hey, I'm not that dizzy. And so then you're better able to actually move in your environment and disassociate your head with your body so that you can turn when someone's calling your name, or maybe better drive at night. So vestibular rehab is a big focus when we're looking at therapy in MS. This idea of forced exercise. So I think we all do better when someone's with us and pushing us. The more we pick up our cadence when we're on a bike, the faster that we walk, the harder we move our arms if we're doing arm swings. All this kind of stuff makes us increase our output as far as exercise goes. So everyone is more responsive. Everybody in this room, myself included, when we actually participate in forced exercise. Okay, so I know me, when I get on a treadmill, I'm just going at my regular old pace, and I start flipping through my magazine, and I'm not even thinking, and I get off that thing and think, wow, I've done so good today, I got on that treadmill, when really I haven't really done much. So the idea of forced exercise is something that's really been talked about a lot amongst all diseases now. Parkinson's, there's just a lot of I think, benefit, because you start to excrete those factors, those BDNF factors, those neurotropic factors that actually really protect your myelin. So forced exercises sounds terrible, but it's actually really good. High intensity interval training, we're starting to think like these quick bursts of cardio followed by some rest with quick bursts are probably a good idea as far as exercise go with MS. Also, doing a variety of things. So a lot of people will tell me, like throughout my day, they'll say, God, you must be so in shape because you're doing these exercises all day long, when in actuality, my body's adapted to it. So, I'm over here patting myself on the back because I worked today, but at the same time, I really didn't exert myself because I'm so used to that. So if you're one that's been doing the same routine day in, day out, and you're not really seeing any changes, then I would definitely recommend that you try something different, and maybe try something different every day. Maybe do yoga one day, then do Pilates one day, then do weight training one day. It's called muscle confusion, and it's supposed to be really good for our bodies. Balance training. We do a lot of balance training. I know that's a very important factor when you have multiple sclerosis. We give you a list of exercises, but what we like for you to do is do your balance work throughout the day. So we don't want you to just decide you're going to do all your balance exercises in the morning. We want you to do a couple in the morning, a couple in the around lunchtime, and a couple at night. That way we see what you're like in different times of the day, right? Because when you're more fatigued, your balance is going to change. And plus, we don't want to just habituate your body to doing those same exercises that same time of day all the time. More confusion for your body. And we're also thinking of these concepts always of how to incorporate some exercise movements into your life, such as when you're going to reach for something in the cabinets, maybe rather than just reaching into the cabinet, maybe come up on your toes and then reach to the cabinet and sustain that hold. Say you're going to get your laundry out of your dryer, maybe doing a squat when you get down instead of just bending over, hinging at the hips. Maybe do a couple of those. Maybe do one shirt at a time out of your laundry while you're doing squats, okay? So just trying to be creative. I know I talk a lot to my clients about even work situations, how to do some exercise at work without looking like you're doing exercise at work. One way is we get a ball and we put it behind your back. And while you're sitting at your desk, having you do some trunk rotation, trunk leaning, even some arm work while you have that ball back there, sometimes is a good way. Not only is it stretching, but now you're working on your core strength as well. And no one knows that you're exercising. So dual task performance is another big hot topic as far as therapy goes with MS. We live in this world now where we're all texting and walking and people are talking to us and we're having to do all these multiple things at all times of all day. So what we're finding is when we did regular PT or OT work in a clinic and we just had you stand there and maybe stand on one foot and look at your balance, we're not really achieving very much, okay? If we have you stand there and lift up your foot, balance on one foot, and turn your head, suddenly we're seeing your balance change. Well, what if we then have you stand on one foot, turn your head, and you have to recite all the things that start with the letter F? Well, then we're really going to see some balance changes, right? So we're constantly looking at ways to challenge. And I would say the same to you. Say you're on a treadmill. Really start to challenge yourself if you feel like you can by just looking around in your environment as you're walking. Because now you're working on your walking and your walking speed and cardio, but you're also working on your balance and your vestibular system. So bigger bang for your buck, right? Or maybe try to do some sort of cognitive task while you're on that treadmill or on that bike. Okay? Even when you're in your home walking around, challenging your mind. We're just constantly trying to make it to where you're more balanced and more safe in your environment that's constantly coming at you now. So we find that we just have a lot more challenges, and with that we have to incorporate a lot more challenges into our therapy and into our exercise now to make sure that we're the whole package. We're balanced, we're not dizzy, and we're strong. Stretching is my personal least favorite thing to do. I'm the first one out the door when they start talking about stretching, but I think it's critical. I'm always jealous because my PT counterparts, we have people that come in that talk about how they can't sleep and they're not sure what it is, but they just feel achy. And my best that I work with, or Gigi, can give them like a few stretching exercises, target them in the right areas. They stretch, and the next day they come in and said, "Where's that PT? She cured me. She's awesome. I slept last night, and here I am working on everything else." But anyway, so really stretching is amazing. There's a lot of correlation between restless leg and MS. There's a lot of spasticity, as we all know, associated with MS. And so when you're not sleeping well, then that then turns into this whole fatigue factor, which we know pretty much everybody in this room, I assume, has fatigue. So we really have to start thinking about these patterns in our life. If we can stretch, are we then going to sleep better so we have less fatigue so that we can exercise and do all these other things? So it's an important thing to incorporate. Strengthening, core strengthening, extremity strengthening is so very important. I really feel like strengthening, it doesn't have to be just dumbbells like we normally think. It can be a lot of weight bearing, body weight bearing. I like those kind of poses, especially if you have numb extremities. It's really good for them to feel proprioception, which is like where your body is in space. So if you have numb hands, I really like just holding a plank on them, holding a half plank, any kinds of push-ups, squats are body weight. I mean, you definitely don't have to have a lot of fancy equipment or weight devices in order to get your strengthening done. I'm not saying weights are great too. You can incorporate those as well, but I just think there's some really neat, different body weight supported exercise out there that sometimes can be safer for your joints, and that's where your therapist can come in to specialize, individualize that program for you. And just because you're in a wheelchair does not mean you can't perform some of these tasks. There's actually a lot of yoga and Pilates that I would consider strengthening that we can even do from the wheelchair. Equipment. So there's a lot of equipment that we can offer you that might actually help you in terms of getting out there in the community, working out, and then with your mobility, there's the Bioness or the Walk Aid, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. It's for foot drop. It's an actual electrical stimulation that can help lift your ankle when you're walking. There's the body weight supported torso vest. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this. I think we're one of the only ones that are certified, but it's really a cool device that's just a vest that you put on your body that has a very small amount of weight, and we put it strategically in different places to counter rate. So if you're having some incoordination, ataxic movements, or perhaps your balance is just you're falling backwards a lot, you're falling forwards a lot, we can kind of track a pattern, then we can counterweight you, and that actually helps with your balance. You never have more than 2.5 pounds on your body. So it's not like an extreme weight, it's just something that tells your sensory system. And people will wear these, but they might wear them on and off because even after you take the vest off, you have some lasting effect. We have seen some benefit with this with fine motor use and some vision, but the vest is really, it's almost too expensive just to buy for that alone. You also need to have some balance problems to kind of want to purchase that type of equipment. We use a lot of sliders in our clinic, so if you can't get your leg all the way out, or you can't get your arm all the way out, we might use a slider to use that. You can use a towel. We use yoga blocks. So if you can't reach all the way down to the floor, that kind of gives you a little bit of extra surface area. We use hiking poles. So if you're somebody that just is so used to that walker, there might be, you might feel a little bit less stability with the hiking poles and therefore get a little bit of a better workout. Or maybe you just need one hiking pole just to kind of get you to where you're a little more stable. We even seen people out in the environment with these in the community because it sometimes looks a little bit less like a adaptive aid and people are more apt to use it. So we found them very helpful. So there's all kinds of gym memberships out there now, and it's kind of like where to even begin. They have all these high intensity gyms, and I know some people are fearful of them, but I will tell you, we have a lot of people who have MS that are involved in some of these gyms. CrossFit, Iron Tribe, there's boot camps, Orange Theory. All of these gyms are kind of meant for you to go in and you have more of a group training type of atmosphere. They will watch your movements. It is high intensity. But you can scale any of those movements. Most of them have a dietary piece associated with it, which sometimes can be good to get involved with as well. At your local gym, you have, your Zumba classes, your Silver Sneakers. They offer personal training as well. I'm a big fan of like a Zumba or dance class, not because I really do like to dance, but I do think that the whole cognitive component with you actually having to like move all of your extremities at the same time is actually pretty good. So they say trying something new is really helpful, like trying a dance class, things like that, where you really have to cognitively think about what your body's doing is sometimes helpful as far as balance and retraining your body. I think what I like to recommend for most people, and everybody's different, group classes seem to add more to your accountability. It gives you more of a buy-in when you get to know someone or you know the instructor, or you just like the whole atmosphere when you're there. And then some of these gyms even go into like the whole competition theory where they're logging your time and putting you against someone else or a personal goal. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really like the idea of you maybe having a personal goal and trying to beat that as well. So your 3 basic guidelines when it comes to wellness is cardio, strengthening, and stretching. And the guidelines are really 20 to 30 minutes of movement every day, if you can. 20 minutes usually gets that BDNF factor excreted, so that way you have that protective factor for you as well. So when you have MS, we really want to think about the cooling. There's some really cool devices out there now. They have the frog togs that you can use. You can buy those at Dick's or Sporting Goods or anywhere, sporting goods stores, or maybe even Walmart. It's just a cloth that you break up and put around your neck. They also have cooling vests. There's all different kinds now, Polar products. I even think that there's a designer, DKNY. I can't think of who that designer's name is, but she designed a cooling vest. So all kinds out there on the market. The MS Society does a really good job of listing them all on their website, so you can look at them. There's also the thought of just drinking cool water during your workout, and also just keeping a fan close by, or maybe choosing your bike or your cardio equipment somewhere where there's a fan. But definitely pre-cooling and cooling after. And the idea is if you work out and you can recover in the next hour, then you haven't done too much. But if you find out that it's hard for you to recover after an hour, then we probably need to scale back a little bit. So I mentioned before pushing yourself and setting goals. I think this is really important. I think letting your family know your goals too, or your support system, or maybe your physician or your therapist. Just holding yourself accountable sometimes, maybe even putting it out there on social media, then you're definitely held accountable. Just finding something like a buddy or something that's going to keep you going. So there's my wellness program. This is what mine looked like. So there's also some great things out there that have never been out there before if you want to do it yourself. There's these great apps now that you can download for free. There's a really good one called the 7-Minute Workout. It's the same interval training that we've been talking about. Like you might have I can't remember if it's a minute or 30 seconds, but you'll do jumping jacks and then you'll rest a minute, and then you'll do sit-ups and then you'll rest a minute, but it will totally talk you through this entire 7-minute workout. And 7 minutes doesn't sound very long, but let me tell you, minute 3 you'll be like, whew, it's pretty rough. So if you want more exercises than just the 7 minutes, you can buy more, but I think this is a really good start. There's also some DVDs that are real specific to MS out there, Exercise with Katrina and Yoga with Baron Baptiste, and they do a really good job of scaling the exercises and showing you kind of different modifications. So that's out there as well. I noticed on my I have an Apple TV. I don't know how many people have that, but there's also a workout program on there as well that looks pretty great. And I didn't write down on here, but the Wii system is pretty fabulous too. And if you get the Wii Fit, it really shows you, it has a way that you can track your progress and see where you're at. And if you don't log in a day, it'll say oh, we missed you, where were you? But you can even put in your weight if weight loss is a goal, or you can see how your balance has changed on there. It gives you visuals. We love the Wii. We use the Wii a whole lot in our clinic. So it's a really good tool, and I think they have some really good deals out there now on it. If you don't want a fancy Wii U or whatever, you can just do. And with that being said, Just Dance is a really great game too. That's on the Wii, and you have to move your hands and legs and coordination. You can even sing if you want to add a little extra cognitive factor, but that's a great game too. So sign up for an event. That always keeps you motivated. That keeps you going. That gives you something to plan for. You pay your money. You got to show up, even if it's just a walk event, a 5K. They have all kinds of things out there now. Biking. I'm actually doing my first 5K this weekend. I'm not ready. Okay, so there's all kinds of apps too out there that you can journal if you want to, your fitness plan. You can journal your food. The MyFitnessPal is a really great app that you can actually put in your food, and you can put in how much you've exercised, and it'll tell you how many calories you've burned. And it's another one that alerts you if you haven't been logging like you should. I know Accorda has a walking journal out there, and I noticed that TC has a really nice journal that actually I use for my food journaling, which it's a really nice book too. So there's things even out there that you can get. There's different apps with different pharmaceutical companies too that will track not only your exercise and your activity, but it also tracks your symptoms. So if you're having difficulties keeping up with, okay, was my hand numb yesterday, or how long was it numb, then it'll kind of prompt you to put in these different kinds of symptoms. So we talked about finding a buddy, a walking group, Zumba class. I gave you my 2 cents about that. Boxing is a really, really good activity that I'm really adding more and more to now. You do a lot of trunk rotation with it, which we all need when we walk. We forget how much we rotate our trunk when we walk. And a lot of us lose that as we have spasticity, as we age, as we have osteoporosis. But not only that, just deconditioning. So I find that boxing has a lot of good rotation. It has a lot of good balance activity. You have to have cognitive, because especially if I'm shouting at you left, right, hook, undercut, those kinds of things, you kind of have to piece all that together. You have to target shoot. So you have to hit your target, so that you don't hit me, which I've had to duck before, believe me. But you want to hit your target. So that's great eye-hand coordination. It's incredible cardiovascular. Sometimes I'll have you kick, so you have to stand on one leg. So boxing is a really great sport. I mean, that's something I think we're all starting to look at again. There was an article out about Parkinson's in boxing, so I think it's probably pretty closely going to come out that it's really great for MS too. Pure Barre. Yeah, I have to say I haven't done this, but I've heard great things about it. It's like a ballet class that you do. They have a bar you can hold on to, so that's really great and safe, but it's supposed to be amazing for your core and amazing for your balance. So that's another option out there. We just have so many options nowadays. And then just plain old hiking. Hiking is, you've got the outdoors, so you're getting your vitamin D, you're walking on uneven surfaces, so maybe you want to take your hiking pole. You've got things going on around you, try to carry on a conversation if you want, so you're getting that multi-sensory kind of experience that's going to really, really help you. Okay, so I mentioned a little bit about sleep and fatigue, so we really need to start. We're really trying to figure out where this fatigue's coming from and why is it so profound in so many people that have MS. So we need to look for different kind of patterns, and the best way is for you all to track and see what's going on in your body so we can figure that out. And it'll help, other people with MS too, if we can figure out where all this fatigue is stemming from. So your Fitbit, if you have a Fitbit, it actually tracks how many hours you sleep. It actually tracks how many times you turn in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's a little bit depressing when I see how much I've turned in the middle of the night and the lack of sleep. But there's this whole thought of like sleep hygiene that I think we all need to visit. Like, what's your routine at night? Are you taking a warm bath and getting into bed and, saying your prayers and going to bed? Or are you like streaming a violent video and then trying to close your eyes and go to bed? What are you eating? What are you drinking? Things like that. Do you have bladder issues? Are you getting up a lot in the middle of the night? So really trying to figure out, track your fatigue, your sleep, so then that maybe we can figure out if that's the issue with fatigue for you personally, because we suspect that might be a good percentage. Some percentage, the fatigue might be more of just the inflammatory response in your body, but some of it just might be lack of sleep. So we need to kind of drill down on that. Eee. Okay, so looking at the different types of fatigue. So what types of fatigue are you experiencing? When you walk for a long period of time, do you have a foot that drags? Because that might be muscle fatigue. Or suddenly when you're writing or keyboarding at work, do you find your hand gets tired or you get a little bit coordination issues? Then that would be muscle fatigue. If you feel this central fatigue, it's more of that debilitating, you get up in the morning and you feel it, and there's no amount of rest that's curing that. So we're trying to figure out where this central fatigue is coming from. Like I mentioned, is it the inflammatory response in your body, or is it something else that's playing into a factor? Heat intolerance. I had a guy from Connecticut, a physician from Connecticut that visited us in our clinic, and he heard us talking to our patients about heat intolerance, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, I really think it's temperature intolerance because we are cold, and we have a lot of people that don't like the cold. I said, no, in Alabama, it's all heat. I'm telling you, there is no other temperature. So this heat intolerance, really trying to do, if we can, that's something we can somewhat control. So if we can pre-cool and cool after, and cool after, or cool like, let's say, you get tired at 2 o'clock sitting at your desk. So maybe after lunch you need to start wearing a cooling vest or drinking some cool liquids. Or if you're going to be at the ballpark for hours, then you're going to need to start cooling yourself in preparation of going, because you're going to have to walk that long distance. Don't wait till you get hot to suddenly put on your frog tog. So this idea of kind of combating that heat intolerance might help with the fatigue. And then there's cognitive fatigue. And we do find that there was a study that NASA did years ago that found that cognition can be improved if you cool yourself. So we find that cognition can be significantly impaired when you're fatigued as well. And I didn't put this on here, but vision can also be. If blurred vision or double vision is something you've experienced, we do seem to see that come back when you're tired. So I mentioned a little bit earlier the cooling equipment, the frog tog, the vest. They also have wrist straps that you can put on your hand that I know a lot of people have found that very effective. They have all kinds of really cool dry-wick shirts now that are available. They have these, at Target, they have these really cool cooling headbands. So you just wet them and you kind of put them around your head and they literally look like they're just holding back your hair. You would never even know they were a cooling device. And then they have those really cool hats, those like pith hats with the fans. I don't know if anybody wears those anymore, but I see them sometimes, I guess, at like Disney World or something. So there's this whole cyclical factor with fatigue. I have people that come in all the time that say, I don't think I can exercise because I'm so tired. So the problem with that is that you're not going to gain any kind of endurance if you don't exercise. So you have to begin somewhere and begin by, say, 20 minutes of exercise. And I promise when you get in that routine, in the end, you will end up having more endurance. Less fatigue. It's just trying to buy into that factor, because I know it's very hard to begin something when you are ultimately so tired and you're wondering if that's going to make it even worse. But studies have shown, and my eyes have seen, that exercise actually changes your fatigue level. And sometimes I have to trick myself, and you guys might find this helpful, but I might be exhausted and I say, I'm not going to do anything today. And then I'm like, well, I'll go just start walking on the treadmill and I'll just do 5 minutes. Well, once I'm on there for 5 minutes, I tend to just stay on it. So if you kind of trick yourself and say you're going to just do it a short amount of time, then maybe you'll continue that activity. Say you want to walk outside, and once you're outside, you're like, well, I'll just keep on walking. So just get out and try to do something. Looking at your time of day, what's your best time of day. There are all kinds of medications that are out there that you can speak to your physician about. There's different kind of stimulants that can help you as far as your fatigue level goes. There's actually some other drugs that might be used for other things that aren't totally written for fatigue, but they might actually help your fatigue level, okay? I talked earlier about sleep hygiene already. I'm skipping all around because I didn't know if this was on the next slide, but sleep hygiene we just talked about, really looking to see what your sleeping patterns are like. There is a big correlation with restless leg, as I mentioned, but also sleep apnea. So if you're suspecting that you have sleep apnea, that might be some issues with your fatigue. I would suggest that you talk to your neurologist about it and don't just seek a sleep study, because chances are you need to see a neurologist that actually does a sleep study rather than just a regular clinic out there. They tend to know a little bit more when it comes to sleep apnea and actually MS clients. I think there's someone in Anniston and someone in Tuscaloosa that can help you out with that here in Alabama. But your neurologist would know who to refer you to. Looking at diet, there's a lot of buzz going around, and unfortunately I can't give you any definitive answers as far as these autoimmune and anti-inflammatory diets. We just don't have enough research out there. But one thing that we know is diet sodas are not beneficial. There's a lot of information as far as salt out there in MS. High fructose corn syrup, there's no research against MS. I just personally can't stand it. I think that it's something that definitely can cause fatigue, can cause you to feel bad. And then these GMOs, these genetic modifying factors that they're putting in our food, I think also play into our whole fatigue. So I try to keep, I'm not perfect, I promise, but I try to keep my food as clean as possible and just eat meats and vegetables and fruit and drink lots of water and try to buy as least processed Cheetos and things like that as I can. And it does help me personally with my fatigue level and the amount that I'm able to accomplish in a day and how I feel. So I do think personally, on a personal note, that is something that has been helpful to me. Looking at how this all affects your quality of life, looking at your support system, choosing those that are going to be positive, that are around you, that want to work with you, that want to be your cheerleader. They don't always have to be your cheerleader. Sometimes you might just want to mope and complain, and then they need to be your listener. But I know I have a good friend who has a really sweet mom, and she's very, very supportive. But every time she calls her mom says, "Now, honey, have you kicked that MS yet?" So she's just not someone she chooses to discuss her disease and her daily trials with. So you just have to think that way. There's a lot of people that want to tell you, wow, you look so good. I mean, you can't have MS. I don't see anything wrong with you. And then you start to think, well, gosh, and then your mom's saying, do you really need to take that shot every day? Or your husband saying, I just don't see where you're affected. I think you're fine. But we all know that this road we're on, it takes medication to manage it, and we all need to be very cognizant of that. We know that it helps keep relapse at bay, and we don't know what that looks like when we stop that. So regardless, if you have just no symptoms or massive amounts of symptoms, we do need to stay on that medication, and we need to get someone who's going to be supportive of that. So, and I'm a mom, so speaking from a mom standpoint too, and it's totally a personal decision, but sometimes even getting your kids on board can be helpful. I just feel like when we're quiet and we don't tell them really what's going on, and they're seeing, people doing shots or talking quietly about something, they make things a lot bigger than they actually are, perhaps. So MS is something that's very manageable. Every family has their issues that they have to deal with. So sometimes even pulling your children on board can be helpful and a big weight off your shoulders as well. So trying to think of realistic goals, but goals that are set at a high bar. Don't give yourself too much slack. So if you want to enter in a journey on weight loss, flexibility is a great thing. So if you want to work on your flexibility, try holding that yoga pose just a little bit longer, or stretching in your chair. Now you're able to actually touch the floor, or perhaps you can cross your leg up and sustain it there for a little bit longer. So just pick an exercise that you're going to do every day or every other day, and to kind of gauge where you're at, and always push yourself to attain more, because you can. Standing tolerance, that might be something that you're working on. You want to be able to stand in your kitchen and complete a task for 30 minutes, and you're breaking it up into 2-minute intervals until you can reach that goal. If you want to work on less fatigue, that's just start tracking your fatigue throughout the day. Shortness of breath, leaving energy for the important things. I know there was one client that I saw through the MS Society that told a very compelling story, and some of you might have heard this before. But she was trying to teach her family what it was like deciding what to do throughout her day because of her fatigue level. And so she had a handful of straws, and she asked them to pull a straw each time she said something. So say she said, okay, today, now I get up, you pull a straw. I sit up on the side of the bed, I put my clothes on, I wash my face, and it was all the energy that she had in that day. Well, by the time she reached lunchtime, she really had no straws left, but she still had to pick up her kids and do her grocery shopping. So she was really trying to teach her family that she's going to have to try to determine what's important for her, and exercise might be it. So they might have to do more in the kitchen, or perhaps reading with her son is more important, so somebody else has to take some other load. So I thought it was just really impactful and a great visual way to show. So maybe share that with your loved ones. What can I do? What you can help me with? Because fatigue is so variable and it's invisible, so it can be very frustrating when you're dealing with that. So just really opening up and telling people what you can and can't do, and how they can help you to achieve those things that you do want to do. And then this whole concept of mindfulness. How many of you know? Do y'all know anything about mindfulness? Yeah, this is a really great practice. It's something that we really probably need to incorporate a lot more into the therapy setting, much less our lives. But there's a lot of really great books out there. I would encourage you, if you ever want to just have some reading, very uplifting reading. Mindfulness is the practice of basically being real in real time. So thinking about what your body feels like. It's a lot of breathing connection, just feeling yourself breathe. It's somewhat of a meditative practice, but it's really going through feeling everything just in your body, and feeling that as you're doing exercise has been proven to make exercise more enjoyable, make you more motivated to exercise, and make you want to do it for a longer period of time. So I'm terrible because before I ever heard of this concept, I always took my time when I was exercising to go through lists in my mind of what I needed to do and who I needed to go where. And I can say for me personally, my anxiety level was always like through the roof when I got done with exercise, because I'm like immediately like, I've got so much to do. I've got to go right now and do this. So really, if you take that time for yourself during the day, even if it's not exercise, even if it's just a meditative time that you take for your day, put yourself in that mindfulness zone. And I encourage you, just try 5 minutes. It is extremely difficult to sit quietly and think about your breathing and think about the environment around you for 5 minutes. I mean, 2 minutes and I'm already wandering off. I have to bring myself back in. I mean, it's very, very hard. But if you can achieve this, they say overall, everything kind of comes to place. So I think this picture is perfect. You have that sweet little dog that doesn't think about anything but just what's going on around him. And here's us thinking of everything else. So I really hope that we're able to offer some more classes perhaps on mindfulness, because I think when MS is impacting you, and it's impacting you in so many different ways, you know, you might have numbness one day and you don't. You might be thinking, am I having some cognitive changes? Those kinds of things. We kind of get so inside our minds and everything's worrisome and it feels very heavy. I think this idea of mindfulness would be extremely helpful to practice for a lot of people that I see in our practice, and myself in general. So hopefully we can offer some more on this topic. Okay, so how can you get started? So we talked about building your team, and I think that's so very important. Reach out to your neurologist, see who he might recommend as far as seeing a physical therapy, an occupational therapist, speech therapist, a counselor if you so like. If you have questions about your employment, perhaps a vocational rehab specialist. You can reach out to Aquila Standback at the National MS Society. Stuart has some really great information on MS views and news that you can also access using your nonprofits. Begin to look into gym memberships, group classes if you like. We have a wellness group class that we've just started for people with MS in our clinic. Then begin to talk openly. Post on your Facebook. No, I'm just kidding. But just start to plan your new goals, your new way of doing things, and hopefully you'll find your family and your friends will hold you accountable. Keep a journal. We've got some really great journals. They say people who keep journals actually are more self-focused. They understand more what's going on with their body, and particularly if you log your food too, you're supposed to eat healthier. Just know that if you're doing a little bit of something every day, then that's something, right? And just don't sweat the small stuff. If you cheat one day, you can just get right back on it the next day. We're all human, right? So, okay. So I love this quote. You can tell I'm a mom. Promise me you'll always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you think, than you seem, and smarter than you think. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tracy. For Q&A, Ken's going to be on that side of the room. I'm going to be on this side of the room. So whoever has questions for Tracy, please hold up your hand. And don't be ashamed of who's going to start first, because we know that you all really have questions. So who's first? I know somebody. I know this guy right here has got a question. Start it on off, TC. Go ahead.
All right, what do you think about interval training, TC?
Oh,
'Cause I know you have an opinion about that.
well, I think it's in a very effective way from the studies that I've read, and it's like you said, in a shorter amount of time, and those, bursts of higher intensity can give, a similar benefit as opposed to doing, long sessions of working out. So especially for, somebody that might deal with fatigue, it might be a
Absolutely.
good choice for somebody like that.
Yeah. So did you guys hear him? The shorter bursts actually help sometimes with fatigue. Definitely. If you do like a 30-second on, 30-second off kind of interval training, sometimes that 30-second rest or maybe a minute of rest gives your body enough recovery so that you can go at it again. So it's a really good concept that we've been trying to put into practice. Yes.
See, I forgot to tell you, you got to wait for us to get to you with a microphone, all right?
Hi, I didn't have a question, but I had a resource for anyone who was interested.
Wonderful.
It's about mindfulness. It's a resource on Georgia Southern's website, on their counseling center's website. There, you can listen to MP3s of deep breathing exercises,
Oh,
relaxation
fabulous.
exercises, so you don't have to think about doing the exercises. You can listen to the person prompting you to relax your body, that it's okay if your mind wanders, you can come back. So if anyone was interested in that, you go to Georgia Southern's website, and you go to their counseling center's website, and they'll have all that information on their website.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. I might use that myself.
Who's got a question? Sheesh. Sounds like you did a good job. Sounds like you did a good job. Let's thank. Wait.
Thank
wait. Whoa, whoa,
you.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't jump down yet.
Oh. Oh, good. Yes. Oh, yes. Please share. Please share.
So I have another resource. I'm with Lakeshore Foundation, and we have a great study. It's for individuals diagnosed with MS, and it's exercise-based, and we have a booth right outside. So if anybody would like more information, I'll see you after the program.
And then anybody that's local, Lakeshore Foundation in general offers some pretty phenomenal programs. Not only research, but you can have a gym membership there as well. And I think there's a lot of people in this room that could speak to its benefit. If you're in town, you really should be utilizing them as a resource. They're just fabulous.
Now, does anybody have a question? No, sounds like you did a great job, like I just said. So let's give Tracy a round of applause.
Thank y'all.
All right, so anyway, yes, it's after 9 o'clock at night, and I just want to thank you all for coming here again. After 10 o'clock for me, I just said that. It's time for all of you to get on home, get to bed. And I do thank you all for coming. I want to thank Teva Neuroscience again for giving us the funding to do tonight's program. Again, pharmaceutical industry really, really wants you all to be kept up to date with information. And MS Views and News has a new slogan that I want to share, and that is just that we believe in empowering all of you. We believe that all of you should be kept up to date with all the information about multiple sclerosis. So again, I want to thank you all for coming down here tonight. I hope that you all come to our program on August 20th, and just spread the word to everybody that you know that, there's an organization out there that doesn't get involved with a lot of the things that the other organizations do. We solely believe in making sure that you all are educated with anything and everything about multiple sclerosis. Okay? Again, thank you for coming. Good night.